we have to go. So in closing, each of us will take one aspect. Maybe Mr. Padukun will take corruption. How do we end this war on corruption? Mrs. Benite, let's look at missed opportunities in closing. You take that bit. And Mr. Showumi, education.
I think, okay, maybe I should just add to that. This issue of insecurity. We've talked about Boko Haram. We're saying Boko Haram is tactically, or described it in any way that they are, the activities are going down. But we still have the issue of the herdsmen.
Which is
we have the Niger Delta Avengers now. Yeah. So how do we tackle that? Let's begin with him, sir.
Okay, on the issue of education, what is clear is that we have a rot called an educational system. I remembered when I was in the university, I knew what a university looked like. Now, the story is very appalling, to the extent that Nigerians don't have, including the elites, no longer have any confidence in the educational system. They would rather take their children to Ghana or foreign countries to study. So to revamp our educational system, I do not believe that the federal government on its own can do that. Again, we go back to the Confab report, which is, look, what is the business of the federal government with regulating education, providing education in Surulere or in Port Harcourt, from Abuja? Why not allow the state governments to do this? After all, the private sectors are even involved, doing that, including the independent sectors like churches and Islamic, mosques. They are also involved in doing it. So why not devolve it, to the state government and pass on the budget? And let's create a situation where we can raise standards through internal competition, among the states, because they will now be more accountable. The issue of internal security, to round up, we now have the issue of Niger Delta Avengers. On one part, we must commend President Buhari. He has made a great effort, to tackle the issue of Boko Haram. Their logistics have been highly degraded to the extent that they are not a fighting force that they used to be. But we also have a new problem, which is the Niger Delta Avengers. We have the Fulani herdsmen. I'm sure Mr. President has now recognized, if we are to believe the Chief of Army Staff, Buratai, that maybe the Boko Haram members have infiltrated the Fulani herdsmen. So it's a thing that we need to now look at, whether we can allow grazing reserves, national grazing reserve, because it means we will allow easy movement. So we need to go back to creating ranches in order to ensure that we can curtail that. The second aspect is on the Niger Delta Avengers. It's quite clear their demands, they boycotted the meeting, their demands are very clear. I'm very encouraged by what the Nigerian permanent representative to UN said about looking at the Confab report. I think it's time we look at it, because their demands are actually contained in the Confab report. Okay. So we might be able to make some progress. Mr. Padukun.
In looking at the tackling corruption, I want you to also add, what we as Nigerians can do.
Thank you. I tried to link this fundamental dimension to it again. There must be a sitting down of the ethnic nationalities.
Excellent.
Where there must be a genuine national restructuring of the currently skewed, lopsided national structure that permits for a clique of motley crowd of military men to ignore the popular will of the Nigerian people as expressed on June 12, 1993, electing Abiola, and they said, over their dead body will Abiola govern, and they arrested him and killed him. It is because of the warped, skewed, lopsided national structure that permitted for them. They are the only ones who can stage coup successfully. All others who have attempted have failed. They have failed the gallows. In tackling corruption, once you can have that kind of sitting arrangement, there will be devolution of powers. Along with devolution of power will be what they call fiscal federalism. There will be no much concentration of money at the center to steal, because the money will be allocated for specific social services and infrastructure. Then finally, to tackle corruption, I plead that President Buhari needs to do much more than he had done. To me, there's an exhibition of tardiness, not fast enough to deal with the matter of corruption. And that's why when I interacted with the media about a month ago, titled "It is Time to Talk," I said specifically that in every given society, either bourgeois-like, socialist class, the preference of the elite are what are coded as laws and constitutions. When it is suited them, they will enforce it. If it does not suit them, they look away to maneuver around it. We will not get out of the wood about corruption as long as the current system permits. My last, I think 3 years ago, my lecture to June 12th, a lecture usually organized by Lagos State government, I asked Nigerians to look at what are taking place in Singapore, just as an example.
That's right.
Look at what happened in Singapore. They sat down. They were like us.
And decided.
And they took a decision, very firm decision. First, they set up a committee to look at the salary scale between the public and the private sector. They tried to bring about virtual parity, close to parity. And now, if you are caught for doing anything adverse, even if you have left office for 10, 15, 20 years, and you did something that will enable you now to earn something other than what you, they will not only collect everything from you, you will go to jail.
All right, thank you, Mr. Paluku. Mrs. Benite.
Well, talking
Missed
about missed
opportunity.
opportunity, arriving on a scene where you know that, one, unexpected fall of the oil issue. If the oil had not fallen, we wouldn't be talking too much like this. Let's be frank. Nigerians have a way of dealing. I believe God has even allowed this, and I'm glad, because a nation like ours has so many opportunities. One, the president should have declared an agriculture emergency. There are men and women who have their own lands that could grow their products and find where to sell it that the federal government can export. One of the exportation we have is cassava. Meanwhile, at cassava, we're still at only 25-30% capacity, and yet we're almost #1. So we need to increase that. Export. We need to look at the mineral resources that we have in different states, urgently look at that confab result to declare a federal government, not this type of government. Because right now, we're running a socialist government, where something is happening from one center and being distributed, and everybody's looking for their monthly allocations. You know, when I hear those things, I ask the state, you don't have any other work?
None.
What are you supposed to be doing? So we need to revamp education. One of my advice to education minister, we need to use the e-platform to increase avenues for education, where we can beam education through the 21st century technology. People can sit in class and the professor, a Nigerian prof in America or Singapore, can be doing all that. Korea, the elites, donated 3.5 million elites, donated their gold to revamp the economy in the 90s.
Yes,
The government borrowed
yes.
$58 billion from IMF and paid 3 years before. But the money didn't go to consumption. Neither did it go to paying salaries of the big people. It went into productivity. As long as we do not declare productivity, those in charge of trade and all the ramifications from the east to the west, they are trade places we need to invest. Not only Dangote, Innocent, more new startup companies. That government should create an environment. We cannot compete with other people when we are at 18%, 23%, while our counterparts are 8% borrowing from the banks. So there's a fiscal policy issue. CBN needs to be broken down and rebuilt, because we have problems with the CBN. The reason why petrol has gone up is not because of whether the regulation on order is the dollar. As long as we have an issue with the dollar, we're going to have an economic crisis. And so we need to look critically to ourselves. So I believe that when they came, I pray that after 29th result, the next day we are setting up experts to look into areas and look at policies, look at the law. These are experts in law, find them. We need a quick change. The grammar is enough.
Maybe you can just add this. Ikmaosa is saying on Twitter that Nigerians seem distant from Nigeria as a country.
Yes, that's
So
what the issue.
how do we
For
make
example,
sure that
yes,
Nigerians
the
also...
Institute for National Transformation, one of our desire, national orientation, they need to begin to do national orientation program. Do you know, look at Daddy talking history. The young men who are seated here, he's talking history of 86, so not history of 66. A lot of young people don't know that. I heard that history was even taken out of school. We need to bring back civic education.
History.
Fast, from primary school. We need the churches to talk about patriotism. We need a mosque to talk about patriotism. Wherever traditional people, patriotism is the next thing, because if you don't love your country, like Esau, you will sell it for a bowl of stew.
Thank you so much. We really need to go, sir.
No, what you was saying, it's better for you to know. We don't have me all the time. In spite of this, your time thing. But you brought us here to say something that is critical. How can Nigeria relate with each other?
Exactly.
You will not do so with this constitution, with the way you are relating. It can never happen. Already in your country, there is so much division, discrimination, neglect. Some people are sidelined. Some people have acquired dubiously the Nigerian Commonwealth, and they are holding it to themselves. All of us are external people.
So we pray for both.
So you have to work in such a way
to move fast now.
To move fast, to bring us together. Nigeria, whether you like it or not, is not a nation yet. It's still a country. You've had opportunity to make Nigeria a nation. You have failed.
And this is the responsibility, I believe, of this government.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on this morning. Mr. Ayo Padokun is a lawyer, is an elder statesman, and of the Coalition of Democrats for Electoral Reform. Thank you so much for being here. Mr. Biodun Showunmi, social commentator, thank you also for being here. And of course, the beautiful lady here, she's a member of the Institute of National Transformation, Juliet Benitier.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
A pleasure being here once again.
Thank you.
Thank you
for the opportunity.
Someone will be back in a moment. Don't go away.